time banking is a form of mutual credit where we exchange time instead of money. So people become members. You set up a network. You decide what kind of membership you want. I think in the ideal world, time banking has extremely open and invitational membership. And that's how I feel about mutual aid networks in general, that we need to create an economy that works for the 100%. And as far as I'm concerned, it's not worth doing and can also be destructive when we don't aim that direction. So time banking, individuals, organizations, businesses can become members. We exchange time instead of money. Basically, that means in practice, it means we say what we have to offer and what we need, and we say it in an online account, but it wouldn't have to be. We could write it on a whiteboard somewhere. And the ancient Sumerians did this with clay tablets. So we can, technology is not a barrier. But basically, anytime I spend some helping someone else in the time bank, I get an hour in my account, and they might subtract an hour from their account. In time banking, it's based on core principles, that everyone has something to offer, that everybody needs reciprocity. It's a key piece of it. We all have offers, we all have needs, that we all benefit from community ties, that everyone deserves respect from other individuals and from civic institutions, and that last but not least, all work is valuable, including and not limited to, and especially caregiving, creativity, civic engagement, community building. Time banking is exactly as abundant as those things are. Time credits can, we can use time banking to recognize skills that aren't recognized in a market economy. The most commonly exchanged services in time banks tend to be caregiving, companionship, and transportation, kind of across the board. But also, time banking is a really great way to build up latent skills. Time banking can be used to create apprenticeship situations. There's a really great model that was in a hospital-based time bank in Pennsylvania, where people could learn to become medical interpreters, and be able to use their time in training. They owed that back into the community. So they would provide medical interpretation to the community where they got their training, but then they have this very highly marketable skill that people normally pay a lot of money for that training. So time banking is just a very flexible tool, and we consider it a way to really generate more abundance. So in time banking, you have the formal structure so people can find each other, and they can find what people offer, and they can log their needs so people can make those exchanges. And the hours flowing between accounts really helps to form a record of the work that's been done, the work that's needed in a community. When an organization's part of a time bank, we welcome organizations to spend as many hours as they need to run the work that they do. Their going negative in their account is valuable to the community. It provides the information that shows what work is required and what work people are willing to do to create a community good. And it gets hours out into the community. Having hours in people's account really makes it easier for people to ask for the help they need. There's so much about time banking that's really making visible flows that would or should happen anyway. So realizing that the caregiving economy is a really core piece of how our whole society works, and it isn't recognized in the market economy. And that's negative in a lot of ways, but also we don't want to move toward commodifying care and creativity and civic engagement and community work. What we want to do is facilitate it, catalyze it, reward it. Time banking is great for that. So in mutual aid network context, we use time banking a lot. I consider it the beating heart of our form of mutual aid networks in Humans United in Mutual Aid Networks. And we want to work toward a world where people don't feel like they have to log all of their time and be bureaucratic about transactions. And in time banks, people tend to form relationships and stop logging their hours. And we want to create a situation that makes that welcome and easy, but still creates the infrastructure for people to find each other, for new people to join in the community. So again, just thinking about how to become invitational for real to the 100%. So we're aiming to tweak how time banking has been approached, put it in this mutual aid network context. So where we are a cooperative, we're doing what we want and need to do in our lives for healthy whole families and communities and watersheds and food sheds and on, a web of life around the world based on neighborly economics. um, so we want to be able to use time making to help facilitate that, and among a variety of other practices, or we don't have to be dependent on a tool, but we use the tool as it best serves us. A really key piece of time banking, or the key to time banking, is everyone's time is valued equally, and we don't put a price on our time. So my hour is worth, your hour is worth someone's hour across the world. And that to me is one of the most valuable aspects of time banking. And I don't think it's very, in my world, it's not possible to really grasp it without actually participating in it. Once you are part of time banking and start exchanging economically as equals, you realize, or I realized, it feels fundamentally different. And there's a shift that happens a lot of times when people do time banking, where instead of need, you see potential. Instead of lack, you see potential. And that's one of the many reasons that time banking is the beating heart of this version of mutual aid networks, is we see it as a way to really make visible the real wealth of your community, which is the people, their time and talents, and the latent talents that we haven't yet devoted our capacity to building. And then we can use time making to grow those up and help create other things, other projects, other economic flows that fill other needs. So, a little more context about time banking outside of the mutual aid network world. Time banking has a long history. Of course, people have always been exchanging time and labor and skills in a variety of contexts. And in the modern world, time banking was really fathered by Edgar Kahn, who introduced time banking in the United States and really championed it in its current form. And there are a lot of groups that support time banking and a lot of ways that you can do it. Timebanks.org and Timebanks USA and Timebanking UK, and Our World, and on and on. You can find a lot of ways to support time banking, and we encourage you to try it out in this mutual aid network context. Another thing in the abundance pyramid, along with time banking, is swaps. So we're just thinking about exchanging like for like, it's exchanging stuff for stuff, exchanging time for time. One of the things that we do here in Madison and the Madison Mutual Aid Network is we just aim to have a swap whenever we're having an event. And that just means you can bring stuff in good condition and trade it for other stuff in good condition. And just like any little gathering, yeah, in time banking, we find that in a gathering of 4 or 5 people, if people say some of their top level needs, we almost always can find within that network someone who can provide for those needs, or someone immediately connected with them who can provide for those needs. So it's just the beauty of airing your offers and requests publicly. And the same thing happens with a swap. You seed a swap with just a few things that you don't want anymore, and people show up and people are happy to get rid of stuff, and people take stuff that they need, and you always end up with things left over too. And for me, it's a way for people to exercise the abundance muscle and exercise the sharing muscle. And I know that we see around the world as our economic conditions really shift, and for people in my socioeconomic class and in my culture that has been meaning for most people nosedive somewhat in material conditions around the United States. So we see that this is catching on more and more. Sometimes it'll be like a Facebook buy nothing group, and then we see how enclosures creep in on these things. How there's less stuff, or like St. Vinny's Goodwill are sometimes becoming more and more expensive, and it's the place to shop for people who have money. These are times when it's especially important to go back to the values basis of what we want for the world, of the fact that we want to create an economy that works for the 100% and recognize some of these economic trends, and create ways to invite everybody into abundance through cooperation. So swaps are a good way to remind people how to do that.